Sarah Martinez found a crying 5-year-old boy in Houston Walmart parking lot at 9:47 p.m. on a Tuesday, and by doing the right thing, the obvious thing, she ripped open a family secret worth $3 billion. The boy was wearing designer shoes that cost more than her monthly rent. His tears were real. The danger was invisible. And when she walked him to customer service, instead of driving away, she signed herself up for a war she didn't know existed. A war between bloodlines, betrayal, and a fortune built on lies. Because the child she saved, his name was Lucas Whitmore, and the Whitmore family doesn't just own half of Houston's real estate. They own silence. They own loyalty. They own truth itself, bent and hammered into whatever shape keeps the empire breathing. Sarah thought she was returning a lost boy to her mother. She was actually lighting the fuse on a bomb that had been ticking for 17 years. Before we dive into this shocking story, smash that like button right now and click subscribe. You won't want to miss what happens next. And comment where you're watching from: New York City, Los Angeles, or maybe Chicago. All right, let's continue. Sarah Martinez was 32 years old, working double shifts at a medical clinic, raising her daughter Mia alone in a one-bedroom apartment off Westheimer Road. She wasn't looking for trouble, she was looking for groceries at 9:30 at night, because that's when her second shift ended and Mia was finally asleep at her grandmother's house. The parking lot was half empty, fluorescent lights buzzing overhead like dying wasps. That's when she heard it. A small, broken sound cutting through the Houston humidity. A child crying. Not the bratty tantrum kind, the lost kind, the scared kind. Lucas Whitmore stood between two parked cars, his little face streaked with tears, his Spider-Man backpack hanging off one shoulder. 5 years old, maybe 6. Big brown eyes searching the darkness for someone who wasn't coming. Sarah didn't hesitate. She crouched down, made herself small, spoke soft. "Hey, buddy, are you okay? Where's your mom?" The child hiccuped. I don't know. She said wait by the car, but I can't find the car." Sarah looked around. No frantic parent rushing through the lot, no security guards, just the hum of the highway and the distant clang of shopping carts. She checked her watch. She had to pick up Mia in 40 minutes, but leaving this kid here? Not an option. "Come on," she said, offering her hand. "Let's go inside. They'll help us find your mom." Lucas took her hand. His palm was small and sweaty and trusting. She walked him to the customer service desk, explained the situation to a tired employee named Deshawn, who nodded and picked up the phone to make an announcement. "Lost child at customer service. Parent, please come to customer service." And they waited. 5 minutes became 10. 10 became 20. Lucas sat on the counter swinging his legs, quieter now, watching Sarah like she was a lighthouse in a storm. She bought him a pack of gummy bears with her last $5 bill. He smiled for the first time. "What's your name?" she asked. "Lucas." "What's Lucas?" He hesitated, like the question was a trap. "Lucas Whitmore." Sarah didn't recognize the name. Why would she? She didn't move in circles where people owned buildings. She moved in circles where people cleaned them. At the 30-minute mark, a woman exploded through the automatic doors like a hurricane wrapped in Chanel. Blonde hair pulled tight, heels clicking like gunshots, eyes wild with something that looked like panic but smelled like performance. "Lucas!" She grabbed the boy, squeezed him, then turned to Sarah with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Oh my God, thank you so much. I was shopping and he must have wandered off. You're an angel." But Lucas hadn't wandered off. He'd said his mom told him to wait by the car. Sarah opened her mouth to say something, then closed it. Not her business. The boy was safe. The mother was here. Job done. "Really, thank you," the woman said again, already pulling Lucas toward the exit. "I'm Victoria Whitmore, if there's anything I can do to repay you." "No need," Sarah said. "Just glad he's okay." Victoria nodded, turned, and disappeared into the night with Lucas in tow. Sarah went home, picked up Mia, made mac and cheese at midnight, forgot about the whole thing by morning. That's what she told herself. But 3 days later, a man in a suit knocked on her door. His name was David Chen. He carried a briefcase that probably cost more than her car, and a smile that had been sharpened in law school. He worked for the Whitmore family. "Miss Martinez, may I come in?" Sarah stood in the doorway, Mia peeking from behind her legs. "What's this about?" "It's about Lucas, the boy you helped. The family wants to thank you properly." "I already said no thanks needed." "They insist." He pulled an envelope from his briefcase, thick, heavy. A small token of appreciation. Sarah opened it. Inside was a check for $50,000. Her heart stopped. $50,000! That was Mia's college fund. That was a new car. That was breathing room for the first time in her daughter's life. "I can't accept this," she whispered, even though every cell in her body screamed, "Take it, take it, take it." David smiled. "You can, and you should. The Whitmores are very grateful. All they ask is that you sign this." He produced a document, legal-sized, dense with text. "What is it?" "A simple release form confirming that the incident is closed, no further action needed, standard liability protection." Sarah wasn't a lawyer, but she'd been poor long enough to know when she was being bought. "This says I can't talk about what happened to anyone." "It's a formality," David said smoothly, "to protect the family's privacy. You understand." She didn't understand. Lucas had been lost, then found. What privacy was there to protect? But $50,000 sat in her hand like a winning lottery ticket. She signed. David Chen left, the check cleared. Sarah paid off her credit cards, bought Mia new school clothes, put the rest in savings. She told herself she'd done nothing wrong. That lasted 2 weeks. Then she got the second knock on her door. This time it wasn't a lawyer. It was a woman in her 60s, gray hair pulled into a bun, eyes sharp as broken glass. She introduced herself as Margaret Whitmore, Lucas's grandmother. "We need to talk," Margaret said, "about what you saw." Sarah's stomach dropped. "I signed the NDA. I'm not talking to anyone." "I'm not asking you to talk to anyone else," Margaret said quietly. "I'm asking you to talk to me." And then, standing in the doorway of Sarah's tiny apartment with traffic humming below, Margaret Whitmore said the words that changed everything. "Victoria isn't Lucas's mother. She's his kidnapper." Sarah let her in, not because she believed her, but because you don't shut the door on a woman who looks like she's been carrying the weight of the world in her purse for 17 years. Margaret sat on the couch, the same couch Sarah had bought secondhand and scrubbed for 3 hours. She didn't seem to notice the stains or the duct tape holding the armrests together. She just sat, hands folded, and began to speak. "My son, Richard Whitmore, died 7 years ago. Car accident. He left behind a wife, Catherine, and a son, Lucas. Catherine was fragile. The grief broke her. 6 months after Richard died, she took her own life." Sarah's throat tightened. "I'm so sorry." Margaret nodded. "Lucas was only 2. We took him in, my husband and I. We raised him, loved him. He became the center of our world. Then what's Victoria's role?" "Victoria," Margaret said, her voice turning to ice, "is Richard's half-sister from my husband's first marriage. She's been in and out of Lucas's life since he was born, always hovering, always watching. 5 months ago, she petitioned for custody, said we were too old, that Lucas needed a younger guardian." "Did she get it?" "No. The courts ruled in our favor. Lucas stays with us." Margaret's hands tightened. "But 3 weeks ago, Lucas disappeared from our home. We were told he was with Victoria for the weekend, a supervised visit. But the visit ended and she never brought him back." Sarah's blood glowed cold. You're saying she took him? She's using him, Margaret said, as leverage. My husband, Charles, controls the family trust. $3 billion in real estate, investments, legacy holdings. When he dies, it's supposed to pass to Lucas. But if Victoria can prove we're unfit, if she can gain custody, she controls Lucas. And whoever controls Lucas controls the money. Why not go to the police? Margaret laughed bitterly. We did. They said it's a family matter. No evidence of abuse or danger, just a custody dispute. Victoria has lawyers, good ones. She's kept Lucas just out of reach. Different hotels, different cities. We've been chasing shadows. Then why tell me? Because, Margaret said, leaning forward, when you found Lucas in that parking lot, he wasn't lost. He was escaping. The room tilted. Victoria had him in a hotel near the Galleria. He must have slipped out. He's a smart boy, brave. He was trying to find us. Margaret's eyes filled with tears. And you brought him back to her. Sarah felt sick. I didn't know. I know you didn't. That's why I'm here. Victoria paid you to stay quiet because she's terrified you'll remember something, a detail, a clue, anything that could help us find her pattern, predict her next move. I don't know anything, Sarah said. I just saw a scared kid. Then help me see what you saw. So Sarah walked her through it, the parking lot, the designer shoes, the backpack, Lucas's hesitation when she asked his last name, the way Victoria had arrived so frantic, so performed. She said she was shopping, but Lucas said she told him to wait by the car. She was meeting someone, Margaret said, her voice turning to ice. She's not doing this alone. She has help, money, resources. Who? Margaret's jaw tightened. My husband's business partner, Elliot Vance. He and Victoria have been close, too close. I think he's funding her. If she gets Lucas, Elliot gets access to the trust through her. Sarah's head spun. This wasn't a lost child. This was a war, a cold, calculated war between people who moved money like chess pieces and human beings like pawns. What do you want from me? Sarah asked. I want you to testify, Margaret said. Tell the court what you saw, that Lucas was alone, abandoned, that Victoria's story doesn't add up. I signed an NDA. NDAs don't hold up when a child's safety is at stake. My lawyers can handle it. Sarah thought of the $50,000, the security, the future it promised Mia. She thought of Lucas's little hand in hers. Okay, she whispered, I'll do it. Margaret exhaled like she'd been holding her breath for a year. Thank you. But as she stood to leave, Sarah asked the question that had been gnawing at her since the check cleared. Why didn't you just tell me this from the start? Why let your lawyer pay me off? Margaret paused at the door. I didn't send David Chen. Victoria did. She got to you before I even knew your name. And suddenly, Sarah understood. She wasn't a witness. She was a target. The next morning, Sarah woke up to find her car tires slashed. All four. Clean cuts. Professional. A message. She called the police. They filed a report, said it was probably random vandalism, told her to check with her insurance. She didn't mention the Whitmores, didn't mention Margaret, just nodded and waited for them to leave. Then she called Margaret. They're trying to scare me, Sarah said. They're trying to silence you. Don't go anywhere alone. I'm sending someone to watch your building. I don't need a bodyguard. I need the truth. Then come with me, Margaret said. I'm meeting with our family lawyer this afternoon. Bring everything you remember. We're filing an emergency custody motion. Sarah should have said no, should have walked away, cashed out, protected Mia. But she thought of Lucas's little hand in hers, brave and scared and trusting a stranger to save him. She went. The lawyer's office was in downtown Houston, 40 floors up, glass walls overlooking a city that looked like a circuit board from above. Margaret introduced Sarah to a woman named Diane Okoye, sharp suit, sharper mind, the kind of lawyer who billed by the minute and earned every second. "Tell me everything," Diane said. So Sarah did. The parking lot, the timeline, Victoria's story, the NDA, the slashed tires. Diane listened, took notes, then leaned back. "This is good, not bulletproof, but good. We can argue abandonment, emotional distress, a pattern of deception. Combined with the existing custody ruling, we might get an emergency hearing." "How long?" Margaret asked. 2 weeks, maybe less if I push." "Push," Margaret said. But Diane's expression darkened. "You need to know what you're up against. Elliot Vance isn't just funding Victoria. He's connected. Judges, politicians, media. If this goes public, it'll get ugly." "Let it," Margaret said. Sarah's phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "Drop this, or your daughter pays the price." Her blood turned to ice. She showed Diane the message. The lawyer's face went hard. "We're filing a police report and a restraining order. This is witness intimidation." "They know where I live," Sarah whispered. "They know about Mia." Margaret reached across the table, gripped her hand. "We'll protect you, both of you. I promise." But promises are just words, and words don't stop people who've already decided you're expendable. That night, Sarah packed a bag, took Mia to her mother's house across town, told her mom she needed a few days, didn't explain why. Her mother, a woman who'd survived an abusive marriage and raised 3 kids on a factory salary, didn't ask questions, just hugged them both and locked the door. Sarah went back to her apartment, waited. At 2 a.m., she heard footsteps in the hallway, slow, deliberate, stopping outside her door. She grabbed the kitchen knife she'd tucked under her pillow, held her breath. The doorknob turned, locked. Then a voice, low and male. "We know you're in there, Sarah. This is your last warning." She didn't answer, didn't move. Footsteps retreated. She didn't sleep. At dawn, Margaret called. "We got the hearing, 3 days from now. Judge Morrison. She's fair. We have a shot." "They threatened my daughter," Sarah said. Silence. "I'm so sorry," Margaret whispered. "If you want out, I understand." Sarah thought about it, really thought about it. Then she thought about Lucas. "I'm testifying," she said. We're racing toward the moment everything explodes. If you're hooked, hit subscribe and turn on notifications right now. The courthouse was a fortress of marble and mahogany. Sarah arrived early, flanked by Margaret and Diane. Photographers camped outside. Victoria leaked the hearing to the press, spun it as "grieving sister fights elderly parents for beloved nephew." Inside, the courtroom was cold and formal. Victoria sat at the defendant's table in a cream dress that screamed innocence. Her lawyer, a man named Franklin Pierce, with silver hair and a smile like a scalpel, whispering in her ear. Elliot Vance sat in the gallery, 50s, tan, expensive watch. He caught Sarah's eye and smiled. Not a threat, worse, a promise. Judge Morrison entered, black robe, gray hair, eyes that had seen every lie humanity could invent. "Let's begin," she said. Diane called Sarah to the stand first. Simple strategy, establish the facts before Victoria could twist them. Sarah swore in, sat down, felt 100 eyes on her. Diane walked her through the night at Walmart, the timeline, Lucas's words, Victoria's arrival. "And what did Lucas say when you asked where his mother was?" Diane asked. "He said she told him to wait by the car, but he couldn't find it." "Did he seem confused or scared?" "Both." "And when Victoria arrived, did she explain how Lucas ended up alone in the parking lot?" "She said he wandered off while she was shopping, but that's not what Lucas told me." Franklin Pierce stood. "Objection. Hearsay. The child's statement is unreliable." "Your Honor," Diane countered, "the child's statement is the entire reason we're here. It speaks to a pattern of neglect." Judge Morrison nodded. "I'll allow it. Continue." Diane smiled. Ms. Martinez, did you feel Lucas was safe with Victoria? Sarah hesitated. This was the moment, the cliff. No, she said, I didn't. Franklin Pierce cross-examined her like a surgeon removing a tumor, picked apart her timeline, questioned her memory, suggested she was being paid by the Whitmores to lie. Isn't it true, Ms. Martinez, that you signed an NDA and accepted $50,000 from my client? Yes, and now you're testifying against her. Convenient. I signed the NDA because I didn't know what was happening. Now I do. Or, smoothly Pierce said, you're a struggling single mother who saw an opportunity to cash in twice. The gallery murmured. Sarah's hands shook. I'm here because Lucas was scared, because something was wrong, and because no amount of money is worth letting a child suffer. Pierce sat down, smiled. He'd planted the seed. Next, Margaret testified, spoke about Lucas's disappearance, the failed visits, the custody battle. She was calm, precise, devastating. Then Victoria took the stand. She cried, perfect tears, talked about loving Lucas, wanting to give him a stable home, how her elderly parents meant well but couldn't keep up with a 5-year-old. I made a mistake that night, she daubed her eyes. I told Lucas to wait by the car while I grabbed one more thing from the store. I was gone for 2 minutes. When I came back, he was gone. I panicked. I searched everywhere. Then I heard the announcement and found him safe thanks to Ms. Martinez. I'll never forgive myself for losing sight of him. It was a masterclass, vulnerable, relatable, believable. Diane cross-examined. Ms. Whitmore, if you were only gone for 2 minutes, why did Lucas not recognize the car when Ms. Martinez asked where it was? He was upset, disoriented. And why did you pay Ms. Martinez $50,000 to sign an NDA if it was just an accident? To protect my family's privacy. We've been through enough. Diane pressed. Have you been in contact with Elliot Vance regarding Lucas's custody? Her lawyer objected. Relevance. Your Honor, Diane said, Elliot Vance stands to benefit financially if Ms. Whitmore gains custody. Judge Morrison allowed it. Victoria smiled. Elliot is a family friend, nothing more. Diane produced phone records. You've called him 63 times in the past month. We're close. That doesn't mean to $100,000 3 weeks before Lucas disappeared. The courtroom exploded. Victoria's face went pale. That was a personal loan. For what? Legal fees. You hired your lawyer after Lucas disappeared, not before. Checkmate. Franklin Pierce scrambled, objected, tried to redirect, but the damage was done. Judge Morrison called a recess. In the hallway, Margaret grabbed Sarah's arm. We're winning! But Sarah's phone buzzed. A photo. Mia, at her grandmother's house, playing in the yard. The text below it, last chance. Sarah's vision tunneled. She showed Margaret. Call the police, Margaret said. And tell them what? That someone sent me a picture of my daughter playing outside? Diane joined them. The judge is going to rule, maybe today. If we can hold... I have to go, Sarah said. I have to get Mia. Sarah, wait! But she was already running. She called her mother. No answer. Called again. Voicemail. She drove 80 miles an hour across Houston, her heart a hammer, her hands shaking. When she pulled up to her mother's house, everything looked normal. The door was locked. The yard was empty. She knocked. Her mother opened it, confused. Mija, what's wrong? Where's Mia? Playing in her room. Sarah, what? She pushed past her, ran upstairs. Mia was on the floor with her dolls, safe and oblivious. Sarah collapsed, hugged her so hard the little girl squeaked. Mama, you're squishing me. I know, baby, I know. Her phone rang. Margaret. Sarah, the judge ruled. We won. Emergency custody goes back to us. Lucas is coming home. Sarah should have felt relief, victory, but all she felt was dread. because people like Victoria and Elliot didn't lose gracefully. They burned the board. That night, the news broke, not about the custody ruling, about a fire. The Whitmore estate, fully engulfed. Charles and Margaret barely made it out. Lucas wasn't there. He'd already been transferred to a temporary state facility pending the custody transition. But the message was clear. Sarah watched the footage on TV, her daughter asleep beside her, and knew this wasn't over. 2 days later, Victoria was arrested, not for the fire, no evidence tied her directly, but for fraud. Turns out, the $200,000 from Elliot wasn't a loan, it was embezzled from a Whitmore subsidiary. Diane's team kept digging. Elliot flipped on her in under an hour, gave up emails, recordings, a paper trail showing Victoria had planned to liquidate parts of the trust the moment she gained control. She hadn't wanted Lucas, she'd wanted the money, and when she couldn't have it, she tried to destroy it. Victoria went to prison. Elliot cut a deal, lost his business, faded into obscurity. Lucas went home to Margaret and Charles. They rebuilt the estate, sold off parts of the empire, donated millions to child advocacy groups. And Sarah? She got a call from Margaret 6 months later. "I'm setting up a trust for Mia," Margaret said. "Full ride to any college she wants. It's the least I can do." Sarah wanted to say no, wanted to stand on her own, but she thought of her daughter, the future, the doors that could open. "Thank you," she whispered. Lucas turned 6, then 7. Margaret sent Sarah pictures, birthday parties, first day of school, a gap-toothed smile. He didn't remember Sarah, really. He was too young. But she remembered him. And sometimes late at night, she thought about the chain of events, how one act of kindness unraveled a billion-dollar conspiracy, how doing the right thing had nearly destroyed her life, and then saved it in ways she never expected. She thought about Victoria rotting in a cell, her greed coiled like a snake that finally bit itself. She thought about Elliot, who'd bet everything on someone else's child and lost. She thought about Margaret and Charles, who'd fought a war to protect a little boy who wasn't even theirs by blood. And she thought about herself, a single mom who'd just wanted groceries and ended up standing in the center of a storm. Here's what she learned. Power doesn't corrupt people, it reveals them. Victoria didn't become a monster when she saw the money, she always was. The money just gave her permission. What would you do if you suddenly had access to everything you ever wanted? The people who help you aren't always the ones you expect. Margaret could have seen Sarah as a threat, a loose end. Instead, she saw an ally, and that made all the difference. Who in your life have you underestimated? Silence is a weapon. The NDA, the threats, the intimidation, they all counted on Sarah staying quiet. The moment she spoke, the whole house of cards collapsed. What truth are you keeping quiet that needs to be said? Greed is a fire that burns everything it touches. Victoria didn't just lose Lucas, she lost herself, her freedom, her future, all for money she would never spend. When does ambition cross the line into destruction? Sometimes the smallest act of courage starts the biggest revolution. Sarah didn't storm a castle, she just held a kid's hand, and that was enough. What small act of courage are you avoiding right now? 3 years later, Sarah got a letter. It was from Lucas, or rather from Margaret on Lucas's behalf. Inside was a drawing, crayon and marker, a woman holding a boy's hand in a parking lot, stars overhead, big looping letters at the bottom, "Thank you for finding me." Sarah cried, not sad tears, not happy tears, something else, something that tasted like closure and felt like hope. She pinned the drawing to her fridge right next to Mia's report card and a photo of her mother. And she realized she hadn't saved Lucas that night. He'd saved her, because before that parking lot, Sarah had been surviving, working, grinding, existing. But that night, she'd made a choice to see someone who needed help and refuse to look away. And that choice, tiny, invisible, thankless in the moment, had set off a chain reaction that toppled an empire and freed a child and gave her daughter a future. The scary thing? She almost didn't help, almost kept walking. We all do that, don't we? See something wrong and tell ourselves, it's not our problem, someone else will handle it, we're too tired, too broke, too small. But here's the truth they don't tell you. You're not too small. You're exactly the right size. Because the biggest changes in the world don't start with presidents or billionaires. They start with someone like you in a parking lot holding a stranger's hand. If this story hit hard, drop your thoughts in the comments. I read every one. Subscribe for more unstoppable rises and falls. See you in the next one.